Good evening and welcome to the Greenfield Public Schools School Committee meeting for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. This meeting is being recorded by Greenfield Community Television. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. No one? All right. Secretary Deneve, would you call the roll?
Absolutely. Secretary Deneve, I am here. Member Goodwin?
Here.
Member Childs?
Here.
Vice Chair Sexton?
Here.
Chair Johnson-Masad?
Here.
Member Martini?
I am here.
Mayor DeSorger? So we are all present despite Mayor DeSorger, who is not present at the moment, so we have a quorum.
All right, we have a quorum with 6 present and the mayor absent. Thank you. The meeting is called to order at 6:31 p.m. Public comment will start in the room. If there are people on Zoom who would like to make public comment, please type into the chat to call us our awareness to you. Not seeing any public comment in the room. Let me check the chat. There is no request for public comment on Zoom, so we will move on to our recognition. Superintendent?
Thank you. I'd like to call Miss Rachel Haig forward to the public comment seat so she can be seen on TV first. We're here tonight to congratulate Rachel Haig, who is this year's 2024-25 Greenfield Public Schools Grinspoon Pioneer Valley Excellence in Teaching Award winner. Rachel Haig is a 4th grade teacher at Newton Elementary. Rachel was nominated by 2 of her colleagues this year. One nominee stated, "Ms. Haig holds her students accountable and sets a high bar for classroom expectations. She also shows compassion towards her students, and they know that they are cared for, loved, and accepted. This combination of kindness and strong expectations creates an environment where any student can succeed." Another nominee stated, "She is an amazing colleague to work with and gives thoughtful and useful feedback. We are so lucky to work alongside her and learn from her." Interim Principal Ms. Jacobs, Assistant Superintendent Sullivan, and myself congratulate you on this award and for all of your accomplishments. We are very fortunate to have you in district, and we look forward to celebrating with you and your family at the Log Cabin on April 30th. Congratulations.
Please turn your mic on. You have to long press on the button and then let go, and it should turn green. You might have to hold it for a little bit. There you go.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm very humbled to receive this award for excellence in teaching. I am thankful for the constant support and collaboration that I receive from my colleagues. Superintendent Karen Patnode and Principal Carol Jacobs both inspire me with their vision and their strong leadership. And I see a positive and promising future unfolding for our students. Thank you very much for this honor. I really, it means a lot to me.
Thank you. And back to the superintendent for an unanticipated recognition.
Before we get to the student reports, I was made aware that one of our student reporters, Mr. Toomey here, received an award for a scholarship of $1,000 from the National Association of Student Councils. He was one of 75 nationally nominated students to win this award. And this award recognizes him for student leadership, amplifying student voice, and service to community. And we are happy to recognize that this evening. Congratulations.
Great. We'll move on to a report of student representatives to the committee.
All right, so beginning with quite a bit from Student Council, so I'm just gonna go through that first. January was a very busy month for the Student Council. We hosted Cookies, Cocoa, and Cramming in preparation for midterms, and we had a total of 45 students and 12 staff in attendance. To raise funds for our upcoming leadership conference, we held a music bingo fundraiser. On the 25th, we traveled to Murdoch High School to compete in Massachusetts Unified Special Olympics for bocce. We brought 5 teams and an additional 10 fans in the stands. Our teams performed well, and our athletes proudly wore their medals on Monday to school. Our fans were the most spirited and could be heard singing the school song and offering to put glitter on everyone's faces in attendance. We ended the month with an event that took months to plan and included the entirety of the community. The mobile polar plunge for the Special Olympics was a huge success. In total, over $13,000 were raised, and this number is still increasing. The link to donate remains open until April. At GHS itself, we had 149 students and staff take the plunge or stay in our chicken coop as towel holders. During the public portion, students from Mohawk, Turners, and Frontier joined. Additionally, we had first responders represented from the fire and police departments, service organizations, and local businesses. It was truly amazing to see just how many people were willing to take the plunge for inclusion. Ms. Mass and the Student Council would like to thank all who attended or donated to the plunge. It really was a huge undertaking and would not have been possible without the assistance of Ms. Patnode, Mr. Browning, the fire department, the DPW, our facilities manager, and the subcommittee who not only planned the event, but were willing to try something new on this large of a scale. We are so lucky to have such a supportive community and such supportive community members to partner with for this project. So thank you all.
For athletics, Western Mass playoffs are here. As of February 11th, the boys and girls teams are a 7th seed. The boys will be going to Monument Mountain Regional, and the girls look as though they will be going to Lenox. Final seedings will be coming Thursday. Boys basketball state seeding is 25 in Division 4, and the girls are number 26 in Division 5. State tournament for basketball starts February 24th. Indoor track season came to a close last week. The boys team won their league, and the girls came in second. Great job by both teams. Mason Umel and Javion Williams will be competing at the state tournament February 16th. Congrats. Ice hockey has clinched the Barry division. First time in the league and are champions. They are number 1 seeded for the Western Mass tournament, which starts February 19th. Hockey seed for the state is number 16th in Division 4. State tournament also starts February 24th. Updated schedules will be posted on arbiterlive.com. Go Wave.
In January, the Library Club had a game day and did some bookmaking with Francesca, the teen librarian from the Greenfield Public Library. In February, today actually, they made Valentine buttons, and they will have a book-to-movie event on Friday, February 28th, where they will show The Wild Robot. This film is rated PG, and all families and community members are welcome to attend. The doors will open at 5:30 p.m. for pizza and popcorn, and the film will begin at 6.
French Club enjoyed a movie night this month and has begun preparations for Taste of World Cultures happening on Tuesday, March 11th. This event is free and open to the public and will include a multicultural feast and performances from students, as well as multiple new-to-taste local community performance groups.
Drama Club continues their rehearsals and technical preparation for their play, The Somewhat True Tales of Robin Hood. We hope to see lots of community members supporting the talented and hardworking cast and crew at our performances on Friday, April 4th, and Saturday, April 5th. Trivia Club on January 18th competed in the Blender Bowl at Pope Francis. It was one of the first times we'd competed in a tournament of that scale. Out of the 26 teams overall, we placed 4th and are just incredibly proud of all the work that our team put in and what we are working towards in the future. Our As Schools Match Wits episode airs February 28th, so make sure to tune in then. And then to close off the report, we wanted to really add something new to all of this, and that is really to start accenting some of the more positive sides of student achievement that doesn't always get covered in the typical club reports. So in this segment titled Student Life, we want to really lead first by promoting and letting the Students of Color group come up and promote all the really positive work they've been doing at Greenfield High School. So without further ado, Devon, do you want to take the stand?
Hello, my name is Devon Brown. I'm a senior at Greenfield High School. And the beginning of the school year, I created, along with Nate Woodard, the Students of Color Club group at our high school. And the main reason why I started this club is because I felt like there wasn't enough work being done to combat racialized language and stereotyping happening in our school building. And I've always been interested into social justice work, but I really got a head start when I was invited to a youth leadership coalition by Naomi, my advisor who's sitting here. And that gave me inspiration to really start and really do work at our high school to try and combat and make a change. So recently we've been presenting to eighth graders a presentation about challenging stereotypes, and we've almost finished through all of the eighth grade advisories. And so soon, I believe it's going to be February 25th is our first date. We're going to be presenting our presentation to the Greenfield Middle School for the first time. So let me try and share this on the screen. It looks like the Zoom call is blocked on this Chromebook. I could do it without the slides if sounds good. Thank you. Always got your back. So I'll give a small rundown of what the presentation's about. I'm not going to be giving the full presentation as we would to the eighth grade advisories, but so we typically start off with our title slide here. We'll address what the presentation is going to be about. We'll give a fair disclaimer that it's going to be a touchy subject, and me or whoever's presenting with me will give exigence on why we joined the club and why we're doing this work in the first place. So immediately we like to start with this icebreaker. It's just a good way to open conversation, and we asked them to list 3 ways they describe themselves as a person. So for an example, if someone were to describe their nationality or their gender, I would typically bounce off of that and say, that's a great way of how you would identify yourself, and it fits into a lot of the categories that we're touching on in the slide, because if people are targeting those aspects of your personal identity, it's going to impact a lot of the ways that you view life. This slide is just expectations for discussions. Obviously, we dive deeper into this when I'm explaining them. I think the most important one that's here is that is the final one that says assume best intentions. Since it's a very touchy subject to talk about, a lot of people might slip up in what they say or not really say something, and it might not come off the way they meant it. So really the whole time we're going to be assuming best intentions while hearing people answer, and also while we're talking we expect people to assume that we're saying our best intentions.
I think we should be good now.
And so this slide is where we ask them to describe a slur. We dive deeper into this in the next slide where we actually tell them how the real definition of what we're using as a slur, but this is another way to engage with the students and see the knowledge that they already have in their head and how we can build upon it. So this is where we describe it. Again, I'll bounce off the answers that they give. If they give something that relates to this definition, I'll be like, that's a perfect example. And then I'll continue on and develop on their ideas that they have already. So this, along with the next slides after it, after addressing what slurs actually are, we're going to address why they're used and really get to the point that sometimes it's just psychological reasons that people are going to be using slurs and stereotypes to categorize certain groups of people. It's easier in a lot of people's heads. It's not something that comes up always off of ill intent. So we really need to just get to the base of why they're used. And so this is what I was saying before, how stereotypes are used a lot of time to place people into certain categories. And so that's why it's so rewarding in your head to stereotype a group of people, because automatically in your head, it's like, oh, I can categorize this group of people. That feels better for me. I won't have to do the actual work of getting to know them or learning more about their subject. This is just a list of how slurs are gonna, or racialized language in general impacts all of us as a community, especially the victims of it. And so we go deeper into this as I explain each one. This one, we usually, these aren't really open-ended questions we're asking to the class, but if somebody has an answer, I'm glad to bounce off of that. But these are just questions to think about as we go through the rest of the slides and how we give tools to address these questions. This is where we start to lean into the tools we can actually use to address when we hear slurs or stereotypes used in our school building. So we're going to be teaching people to become active bystanders rather than just standing there and letting that language be used. And again, this is like the slur section. We're going to ask them and engage them by asking them what is an active bystander, seeing what they know and building upon what they already know. And so this is just a definition. It's kind of like a 4-step plan to be an active bystander if you don't know what to do with a situation. It's like you can follow this 4-step plan, and it's easier said than done, obviously, when you're in a situation like that, but just giving them the tools to act on it if they were to hear it. And so this is just a simple list. Sometimes we'll read off a couple, but this is just for them to take back. We'll ask them at the end of the slideshow to be like, what's one thing that you learned from this presentation? And often the time they'll say one of these quotes, or they'll maybe say something to how they're going to combat it the next time they hear it in real life. And so this one, we do people who challenge norms. This is just a list of activists. I usually advise all the students to go and look up some of these when they get home. Like a quick Google search will do for 1 or 2 or 3 of them. And each person who's presenting always has their person off of this list that they're going to talk more about. I always talk about the Black Panther Party and how they've really impacted my life and wanted me to do this racial justice work in the first place. And yeah, I always just advise them to go do a quick Google search when they get home of these people. And then this is just talking about our club. We say our resources that we have. I'll say that I'm always a friendly face in the hallway. They can come talk to me about it if they'd like to. They can email me. I'll give them their emails. And then after this point, typically, we thank them for attending the lesson. And we hand out note cards to say one tool that they learned from this lesson, one thing that they're going to apply to their everyday life. So yeah, it's a lot different presenting to a group, an older audience rather than a bunch of 8th graders. But thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Usually we give members a chance to ask the student reps, and in this case, you questions. So are you open to that?
Yeah, I'm open to questions.
Okay, great. Questions from the committee?
First, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming and sharing with us the work that you're doing. It's incredible, and we're really proud of you.
I appreciate it.
I was just curious, how are the eighth graders sort of responding and engaging in the discussion?
So I've been really surprised. Actually, I was going into this expecting that I was going to have at least one bad encounter, and I was mentally preparing myself for all sorts of ways that this could have gone. But so far, it's been nothing but really focused students. They've been extremely attentive to what we've been presenting, and there's just the amount of respect that I've received for these slideshows, and it feels like these students have actually been applying it into their everyday lives and actually picking up what I'm saying in the lessons. So it's been a lot better than I expected.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Well, thank you so much for coming. It's not easy to come and do this kind of presentation. Wow, so good for you, and we appreciate the trust you put in us. Oh, looks like Kate has a question. Sorry, back to Kate. And for the notes,
okay.
Susan, looks like the mayor has joined us.
I just wondered if you have been able to feel a tangible difference in your school environment since starting this effort.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the reason why we started this club, it's been very, especially towards the beginning of this year, it felt very hostile in the school building. It felt like there was a lot of animosity going around, and I definitely noticed a shift in the eighth graders with a lot more racialized language being used this year specifically. And I've definitely noticed a change. I haven't heard it at all really in the hallways since we started these, especially from the kids in the groups that we've presented to. I definitely haven't heard it from any of them. So for me, it seems like there has been a tangible change just in the atmosphere of the school building.
Other questions or comments? Yeah, so just to repeat, thank you so much. I know this is not easy. Wow, good for you taking that leadership in your school and here with us. It really makes a difference to us what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
And thanks to our student reps also. Okay, we're now going to take a vote to enter into executive session. So I move that pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto, and to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant in aid requirements. The committee will return to open session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, Secretary Geneva, will you call the vote?
Yes, hold on a second. You made the motion and I did the second.
It was a simultaneous second, I think, but in the room, I think it came in first as, was it Member Sexton or?
Was it Sexton? Okay.
No, it was, it was Ann.
It was Ann. Okay, we do a lot of those simultaneous seconds around here. Okay, Member Goodwin?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton?
Yes.
Chair Johnson-Masad?
Yes,
Mayor DeSorger?
Yes.
Member Martini?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that's unanimous that we enter into executive session at 6:54.
okay, and so people on Zoom, we will call you on the telephone to get you into the meeting room for the executive session. So stand by for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'll be quieter.
I'd rather you too loud than too soft. One thing you could try is that little arrow next to the microphone button. And if you go into audio options and you can select, oops, maybe I'm used to, what do I usually do? There's Sydney. Okay, welcome back. We are moving on to reports of the administration. Is Andy here?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. You have in your packet the financial reports for February and the narrative I've included as well. I can go over the highlights, if you will. Again, normal process of charging everything to the local budget. And as has been the practice of the district, this time of year, we've reclassed half of the expenses of special education tuition to the circuit breaker revolving account. So you'll see that reflected, summarized in the memo, and then also in the revolving account report, you'll see that charge to the circuit breaker line. And then come into the year, we'll do the second half of those charges. So as we go through, you'll see as far as the highlights go, with our projections as of right now, we have a balance to cover unanticipated year-end expenses and/or expenses that have yet to be encumbered of $103,156.56. As I say, that means that 99.56% of the budget is committed. And as expected, as we go month to month to the end of the year, this reduced the quote-unquote surplus projected from January. So I can answer any questions you might have regarding this or anything in the other reports.
Great, let me start. Raise your hand on Zoom if you have any questions. Ginny, go ahead.
Well, I have several questions. Andy, do you mind if I start with the CIP, capital? Do you mind if I start there? Okay. So this actually was just about getting some other things done. I saw, looking at this, that there was a roof that leaked that there was $25,000 left over from, and some asbestos remediation, $17,000 left over. Let me just see. I have this pulled up on my computer.
Yes, I see that the Federal Street elevator. That's the FY20 capital articles.
Yes, and I know we're going to use the elevator money. Mm-hmm. But I wondered. I saw we still have money in the energy recovery units. Is there anything? This is just a procedural question. Is there anything wrong if we? I know you're supposed to use them in the same building, aren't you?
You're supposed to you can use them for like projects. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same building.
Okay.
But it's also dependent on how the funding was done, whether it was from capital stabilization or borrowing.
Okay.
So I would just need to look at how those funds, like the roof leaks and the asbestos remediation, what was the funding source for those from the city?
So I was just looking through this, trying to get that other project done, because we had 195,000 left for energy recovery units, and I thought the roof leaking sounded close to energy recovery units because it was on top of the roof. But I know a little bit about how that works, not as much as you. So I was just maybe you can let me know at some point.
Sure. I remember seeing somewhere from Liz Gilman, and I'll just have to search that out, where she actually put together an entire listing of all the capital articles and appropriations, and how it was that they were funded. I'll find that and I can share that with the superintendent. We can share with the committee.
Okay, because it was just me trying to get some of those things done. I don't understand very much about what energy recovery units do exactly, but I wanted to see if there was any way to turn some of those around to get that done. And then there was another question that I had on that. And on the high school, I just, for your, Karen and I, you weren't in this room, and Mike Boudreau, we were all talking, we are taking some money out of the high school building fund to fix those two boilers because okay, I just wanted you to know, I wasn't sure if you knew that. I didn't ever bring that up at a meeting.
Yep, no, I've been aware yet.
Okay, all right. And then I'll let somebody else go. I had a couple on the operating, but I'll let somebody else go first.
Okay, anyone else on Zoom? Okay, and then in the room, Member Goodwin?
Andy, on page 1, I guess I'm just looking at it where it says borrowing orders. So is that money?
Page one of what?
Page 1 of the capital.
Capital.
So the very first page, so it says total FY07 borrowing orders. Did we borrow money from the state for the windows, or was that paid from the city?
I'm guessing that the city issued a bond, but again, I would have to double check on.
So we owe somebody.
Well, they went to the market to get a bond.
Okay. I think that's what I was trying to figure out, like the Newton roof and the Newton modules. Like they show up as a capital outlay, so that means Mayor Martin just paid for them, correct?
Well, possibly. I'm gonna hazard a guess that that's the case, and then borrowing would be, as I say, issuing of a note of sorts.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions in the room? Member Sexton? Member Sexton, and then I'll go to you, Mayor.
Yeah, this is just me maybe being a little dense right now because it's the middle of the week. It's been a week. But this is specifically in reference to the memo page. I don't understand how 103,000 is a reduction in the surplus of 92,000.
The surplus last month was 195, and so since we're down to 103, it's a 92,000 reduction from the month prior. I apologize for
I got it now.
My wording.
Thank you.
Mayor?
So Andy, now my questions are on the operating budget. And on the encumbrances. So I'm going to go to page, let's see what page this is. The high school, page 8, I think it is. I have several questions on the encumbrances on different pages, but I marked them down to be concise. So in the teachers, on salaries, we year to date on the teachers' salaries, we've paid $1,259,725.57. You see what I mean? And then, but we've encumbered $1,900,000. And I actually did the math on that, and we're already over the midline here. And so I see that on several different ones where what we've spent at halftime or less than halftime, I you know, if you're going to teachers middle school, on page 7, we've spent 999,000 on their salaries, and yet we've encumbered 1,788,000, which does not make sense to me. And I actually checked these before asking on the, on the Munis thing that I can see. And I thought, it doesn't make sense to me that we would be encumbering. Let's just use the middle school teachers, that we would be encumbering almost twice what we've already paid. Because there's 26, pay cycle.
Mayor, I can tell you that, first of all, on some of them, it's because, again, of the other funding sources. When we do the all funds budget approach, this goes to, again, a thing of charging everything to the local, and then we'll reclass expenses to the other funding sources that we plan on using, the school choice, et cetera, the other revolving accounts that we have. If you look at a budget. The second thing also is that this is an ongoing thing where I know I want to say almost after every payroll, Vera and the payroll office will go through and review to ensure that the encumbrances are accurate or not. The other thing I will say is that even though we're halfway through the year, you do remember some of the teachers ask for their pay to be spread over the summer. So there are pays that will go all the way through July and August of the next year. So we'll get, I can go into more, we're researching that. We always do research the encumbrances. I know you didn't want to hear anything regarding any potential issues with Munis, but just I could tell you this week, Vera and I were going through and finding some encumbrances that need to be adjusted, and we're working with Tyler Technologies regarding the potential need for those changes. So it is an ongoing process, but one in which there are some, I'll be honest with you, there are some lines that were potentially over encumbered and some lines that were potentially not encumbered, enough. So
fair enough. And I totally was thinking about that, about how people might want it to be paid at the end. And as you well know, a lot of more than any of us about where all those funding sources come from. But there was one more question that I had on that. Well, I guess I'll wait. If I have it, I could put it in writing to you specifically. Okay, I'm sorry to.
No apologies.
But I actually was looking through it, and I had a real question about what income. Oh, I know. This is it. This is my last question. If we're making transfers, and I would like to thank my other committee members who are signing off on these warrants, because I'm not doing it. So thank you to the other people who have signed off on the warrants. But if we are making transfers, Andy, and this is all I know about this on the city side. If we're making a transfer from one fund to another, we have to put out an order. Do you have to let us know every time we're making a transfer, or what's the rules on the school side?
The school committee's policy on budget transfers are that if the transfer occurs within the DESI function code, then the administration can do the transfer.
Okay.
If it goes between function codes, so from say a 2,000 to a 4,000 or one of the other, I'm using that as an example, that's altering the intent of the budget, and therefore we would bring it to the school committee for approval.
So I was
just
on the Munis side, and I saw things where we reclassified, and I thought, well, I didn't know that, but then I thought maybe I don't need to know that. So thank you.
So for example, like if you look on page 8, we'll go back to page 8 where at the top, there's a reduction of 65,686, but right below it's a positive 65,686. That's going from the 2,300 to the 2,305.
Right, I saw that.
In the DESI function code. So the intent of the original budget has not been altered, and so it was done by administration.
Okay, fine. All things that you know more about than me, so I will put anything else that I have in writing. Thank you. I'm good. That's all my questions for tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions on Zoom? Any other questions or comments in the room? Thank you all for a productive report and discussion. Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to the report from the Assistant Superintendent.
All right, thank you. Good evening. So tonight my report includes an update on our Title I events to start. So we were once again proud to be a part of this year's Winter Carnival from January 31st through February 2nd. We had a great time connecting with families at the Family Fun Fest on Saturday, February 1st, where we were able to provide books and activities and games that encouraged literacy and math engagement. We also participated and greeted families at the cookie pickup with Olaf on Sunday. We were disappointed that the comedy science show had to be unexpectedly canceled Saturday, but all in all, it was a great event and great to see everybody come out and support the schools, the city of Greenfield. Additionally, we had a math night event at our 3 elementary schools. That was a great success. That's where most of the photos in the report came from. Our math interventionist did a great job of planning and leading this event and provided students and families with hands-on math activities in a fun, engaging setting. And the superintendent and I were able to stop at all 3 events, and they were all very well attended. And then finally, nearly 100 Greenfield Public Schools students completed the Stick to It reading challenge that we partnered with the Thunderbirds for, and were rewarded with the experience at the Thunderbirds games. We did spread it out between 2 games, partially some on request, some out of need. The game on the 25th that we had originally ended up selling out, so good for the Thunderbirds. And I'd like to say Greenfield certainly had something to do with that. We had over 120 students, families, and faculty attend the 2 games to celebrate the achievements, and Greenfield was recognized at both games. Scroll down past all these pictures. Grants update, February Acceleration Academy. We're excited to launch the first February Vacation Acceleration Academy next week. I will tell you, probably from the first time I mentioned this Acceleration Academy to now, there were times where I was like, I don't know that it's going to run. It's definitely going to run. It's not. So we had some teachers step up in the past couple of weeks, and we're able to offer it. We'll have approximately 25 students across the district in grades 1 through 4 with a focus on their literacy skills. And based on what I'm seeing from the teachers, will be a fun and engaging week for students who attend. Another Innovation Career Pathways update. We submitted our Part B application last Thursday. I want to give a huge thank you to the team, Sarah Crawford, Kyle Bostrom, Kirsten Kinsmith, Josh Leedy, Andriasi, Gia Westerman, Siobhan Fitzgerald, and Mike Browning for their dedication in the planning to complete both Part A and B. So the next step is we're waiting to hear back from DESE to schedule an interview with the Innovation Career Pathway team. After that, they take the application and information from the interview and determine whether or not Greenfield would receive a designation of an Innovation Career Pathway. And if so, we would be able to launch an advanced manufacturing pathway beginning in the 25-26 school year. DESE district report cards were released last week. I did provide a link in here. There is a lot of information in these report cards. It's a comprehensive look at everything from student demographics to teacher qualifications to per pupil expenditures. It's there in the link. In the coming weeks, we'll be sending information home to families about district and individual school report cards. I highlighted it a couple of months ago, but again, I think if you look at some of the data, you're going to recognize that there's a lot of work that's been done, and you're also going to see there's a lot of work to do. But back to that accountability, that is included in this report. And again, want to tout that the Greenfield Public Schools met 53% of their improvement targets last year, which put us in, actually, as a district, the third category from the top. It goes school of recognition, meeting or exceeding targets, and then substantial progress toward targets. So a lot of great work being done in all of our schools. So again, just wanted to highlight that. And then finally, we're continuing our look at data. This is an important time of year, mid-year progress monitoring. So second benchmark was complete in January, and from teachers right all the way up to the superintendent, we're looking at that data, identifying places where we might be able to make some shifts in the next 1 to 4 weeks, and also longer term. We feel like we have more data now than maybe we have in the past, and we want to make sure that we're using it and targeting interventions, shifting instruction, and doing all the things that our students are showing us that they need based on the data that we have.
Superintendent?
Thank you. If you recall, in September, as part of the new superintendent induction program and professional development group that I'm involved in, I started with the entry plan and how the first year was going to be broached as superintendent and the things that needed to be done in order to get a lay of the land, a state of the schools, and then go from there. And so what you have before you tonight are my entry plan findings from all of the work that's been going on since July 1. I'm certainly not going to read it verbatim to you, so I'm just going to highlight some of the steps, but really wanted to recognize not only what I took away from all of this as our strengths in district, but really where those opportunities for growth and what we can do with those opportunities for growth in planning our strategic ways moving forward on the biggest impact for student growth and achievement. So I'll start there and just really want to go back to those core values that I highlighted in September and how everything that I do and everything that we talk about and everything that we focus on really talks about students first and having that shared vision with stakeholders, supporting and engaging those who serve our schools, and really building collaboration with our families and strengthening that. The steps from that entry plan was just a lot of boots on the ground, a lot of legwork, had a lot of stakeholder interviews. You'll see a sampling of folks that I met with to gather feedback from, numerous stakeholders such as students, administration, PTOs, families, union, community organizations, school committee members. We've been doing our quarterly one-to-ones. The next quarter ones will be scheduled in March, so be on the lookout for that. And really just having conversations, engaging with folks about where they want to see our schools, what they hope for our students, and how we can make that happen based upon their ideas. Along with the entry plan, there was also a materials review. I listed numerous documents that not only was I familiar with as an assistant superintendent, but there was much more to unveil in terms of things I wasn't previously involved in, and now I'm looking at through the lens of a superintendent. And then lastly, it was really doing some observations, being boots on the ground, not only reading the documents, reviewing data, but being in schools, talking with staff, meeting with students, engaging with building administrators, just really trying to see the whole picture of the daily operations that is happening in our buildings. A pivotal piece to that has been these learning walkthroughs and using our data from the learning walkthrough tool and gathering that district-wide data and seeing globally really areas for growth, areas for celebration, and continued practice. The professional development that we started over a year and a half ago with those instructional strategies and those practices that we're really focusing on our classrooms has really been paying off. And I wanted to celebrate that. And you'll see with the data collection tool that we adopted this year, it's much more succinct and we're able to gather and analyze data. So you'll see the growth from our September and October average to our December and January average. And one of the things that is just district-wide. That includes over 100 to 125 classrooms over the course of those months in each of those cycles. So, but it really is having a positive effect on what we're seeing in our classrooms. So after all of that was really to derive, what do I know now? Where do I see our strengths? And then where do we need to go? And we really have some strengths. So I really want to highlight that today. First and foremost, our faculty and staff. They're dedicated professionals. You know, numerous stakeholder groups from all different areas continually remark to me that they have a deep respect and regard for the teaching and instructional assistant staff in our schools. They truly believe they care about our students. They truly believe they welcome them each and every day into their buildings, and they really feel as if they are just top-notch people, and I couldn't agree more with them. I highlighted with some photos, but I really wanted that to be the first strength that we identified, because they truly are the most valuable influence in our students' lives. But additionally, really a lot of our other department heads got kudos from numerous stakeholder interviews that I had. They complimented our facilities, our food service, our transportation folks, and I think district-wide, Greenfield Public Schools can be very proud about the people that work here and care about our students each and every day. Next up, really the strength was the expansion of academic programming at the high school level to meet the needs of our students. People celebrate the advanced placement coursework that we offer that a lot of other communities have had to cut in these budgetary times. They celebrate that we offer advanced coursework that many other high schools don't. They celebrated that our schools offer these great electives like ceramics or manufacturing or TV studio or culinary, which a lot of other high schools do not offer. And really they were celebrating some new additions to the program of studies. There's a new sustainability course and a financial literacy course that have been very welcomed by stakeholders. The next strength that I wanted to recognize is really the expansive and diverse extracurricular activities. You know, we've always had numerous athletic teams, but the expansion of clubs and student groups that are led by student initiatives, such as you witnessed tonight with the students of color who started that group, who were concerned about their culture and their community and wanted to be a voice as a leader in their buildings, is just phenomenal. And, you know, I celebrate Devon in his presentation, but we really do have students that are taking charge and really becoming leaders and wanting to make change in our community. And we are very celebratory of all of that. And we offer a late bus for students so that we are equitable in what students can access. And I think that's really one of the highlights that families appreciated in many of my conversations, that their students can engage in these after-school extracurriculars because we offer an opportunity for them to be transported home. And we are still a fee-free school for athletics. So that is not in existence in many communities that surround us. So really, you know, just wanted to make sure that those were the things that people recognized and celebrate and keep in the back of their mind, that there are so many things that are going well in Greenfield. And then there are things from this entry findings that really are opportunities for growth. The first opportunity for growth is really looking at the increased focus on literacy. We've talked about at this committee, we've talked about with families, all students should be reading at grade level by grade 3. We've had this conversation over and over again. We talk about it in the professional development that we've been doing for the last year and a half. We've talked about strengthening our Tier 1 classroom instruction and then also upping the ante and having Tier 2 interventions that can make that happen. And that comes from, you know, really honing in on what we need. A lot of the work that Stephen has been starting with the initial core pass diagnostic testing and giving teachers the data they need to address the skill gaps in their students and then how to serve them is really one of the opportunities that we need to expand on in the growth. I shared some just benchmark Dibble's data that we've been doing with Teaching Lab in a chart there. You can see that we are making some progress and that this core pass diagnostic would really help teachers identify the specific skill and how to attend to that skill so that we can close those skill gaps. The second opportunity for growth really comes from improving attendance. We can't make any positive student growth if they're not in front of us. So that really has to remain something that we focus on every seat, every day, every child. I say that in my parent updates. The DESI's mantra is your presence is powerful, but we need our kids in front of us. So that really has to remain one of the areas in which we continue to address. We have to work with our families to understand the obstacles. And part of the feedback in a lot of my stakeholder interviews is how to build stronger school communities that students don't want to miss out on. If they're so excited about school and what's happening in their school building, they'll want to come to school as well. We also want to work on strengthening our family partnerships so that we can help on an individual case-by-case basis. Along with that, though, comes improving our social and emotional supports. We know that school is not just only about academics, but supporting the whole child and really building and strengthening our culture so that we address social and emotional needs of our students. You'll notice in my parent updates, we celebrate each month a CASEL competency, and we give advice to families how to model and practice with students the competency of the month. I gave an example that November was self-management month, and we give tips on try it. How do you practice your self-management? Talk to your children about what you do, modeling and practicing that so that we can teach them, which is what they are, young humans learning how to grow into themselves as adults and really capable of managing and processing these emotions. So we've really been working on the social and emotional aspect. We've really been recognizing students. You'll see our Be Amazing awards and really recognizing students who are showing kindness, compassion, empathy, and really working to build a better culture each and every day. And then the last opportunity for growth that I really think is pivotal is improving our programming at the middle and high school level for college and career readiness. Exploring future opportunities earlier years in the middle school is really something we have to take advantage of. Oftentimes when you're talking with guidance counselors at the high school, kids who are in 10th or 11th grade are past the point of understanding what they needed to do in order to get into the school that they wanted or go on the path of the career that they wanted. And we really need to start that at the middle school level so that they know what the avenue ahead of them is for the opportunity they want, and then also how to access it. And I think that's something that we really need to work on. We also really need to diversify our pathways. Not every student anymore wants to go to a four-year college, and we celebrate those students that get into, we have wonderful, Shane's got accepted to Brown, he's attending Brown in the fall, and yoo-hoo, we love that. But we also have a population that do not want to go down a four-year college pathway, so we want to provide them with a pathway where they will have a sustainable living wage and can have a life outside of high school. So we really want to think about alternative educational pathways that can service all of our students. And that, really leads to my conclusion of our job is to meet all students' needs. All students. So we need not to only have that belief, but we have to have the programming and the staffing in place so that all students can and will achieve. And I think all of these opportunities for growth you'll see reflected in the budget hearing on the 24th, because we have to support these initiatives, these opportunities, so that our students get the education that they deserve in Greenfield. And then I just quickly had an update because I know there are always some enrollment questions and staffing updates, so I do just want to pivot to that document. The district did acknowledge the retirement of network manager Mike Svinis, and he will be retiring effective May 16th. He has been with us for over 17 years. Going to miss him dearly, but we wish him all the best in his next adventure. Appreciate all that he has done. You will note the job description for his position is in your packet this evening to approve so that we can post and try to get those shoes filled, which will be very difficult to do. We also will be participating tomorrow at the GCC Mass Hire Job Fair. So we are trying definite alternative pathways and trying to fill the positions that we do have open. So we will be there from 11 to 1. And we also continue to encourage our parents and caregivers to volunteer. I want to shout out to some parents who have been helping us out at the crosswalk at Federal Street because we have not had a crosswalk monitor, and they have joined and helped us do that every day so our children are safe crossing the street. So thank you very much. And then I just included the enrollment update, the change from January to February. We actually increased by 1 student, but you can see the grade level differentials. In doing some research, a majority of students actually have moved out of state. We had 1 go to Vermont, 1 go to Virginia, Texas, Connecticut, Puerto Rico, and then some transferred to Amherst, Worcester, and Athol due to housing switches. So not overly surprising that if you're moving that far away, you're not going to be able to remain in Greenfield. So, and that concludes my report. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for the assistant superintendent and the superintendent? Anyone on Zoom? Jenny, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted first to say thank you to both of you being at the Winter Carnival. And it was a cold and beautiful weekend, and thank you for your town spirit for being there. And secondly, to the superintendent, Karen, I was listening hard to what you said, and I think that's very good that you're making a plan for the future of all the students, whatever school or, not school, whatever their future was that they wanted to attend. I just wanted to commend you on that. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Other Zoom questions? Okay, in the room? Anyone? Member Goodwin?
So I'm hanging out with a lot of high school kids these days and having one of the most honest conversations because I'm like their grandmother and they don't care. I'm a sub, but they know that I've devoted my career to education 40 years. And the most important thing we have failed a lot of kids in is teaching them to read, and they know it. So that literacy goal, put 4 stars next to it because it's the #1 thing every child who goes to school deserves to learn how to read. It's amazing how many 12th graders say the last book they read was in elementary school. I just am so, when I listen to them talk and I listen to them, their plans for the future. We just built a brand new library in Greenfield. I hope it's for children who can read. So I am concerned. Your Dibble scores gave me, my heart just palpitated. So just as much, if you said I need 6 positions for all reading specialists, I would be picketing on the streets because they need to learn to read. It's the best gift we can give them. No matter what they want to do in the future, they've got to be able to read and think critically. And this generation is all about their cell phones. I say, they can't punctuate, they can't write except in short sentences, and then they forget it's a sentence because they think it's a text, but they need to be able to read. So that's the data. I would love to know how many 3rd graders in Greenfield are not at grade level. Because I, am one of those people, the MAP scores came out and I was like, okay, how many? So that's data I would be interested.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Member Childs?
I would like to comment on the hockey reading challenge. It was a huge hit in our house and with my kids' friends. So I hope there are more reading challenges like that coming down the pipeline. Because even just that little bit of a goal, even for the kids who didn't really care all that much about hockey, is just the fact that they could win something. And so it was a good opportunity for me to put books in kids' hands and get them to read books that I like. So do more of that.
Other questions or comments? Member Sexton?
I just wanted to thank you for the thoroughness of your report. Reading through that list of documents and the list of people that you reached out to, I think is really, it was heartening to see how much work you put in just to what is the lay of the land. And I'm really looking forward to updates on all of these things because I think that they're all very important. And this is not a direct question that I need you to answer right now, but as we move forward, just think about what other ways besides approving a budget can we as a school committee help you in achieving these goals.
Other questions and comments? All right, I will comment. I wanted to thank both of you for making it possible for me to attend the hockey event. That was a really exciting thing to be a part of and just to feel the energy and connect with the family. So it's nice to have something celebratory and positive in these somewhat dark days. Superintendent, I second the comment about the thoroughness of your report, how hard you've worked since July 1. I can't believe how much you have accomplished in a short amount of time. I really, really appreciate you and everything that you're doing. I was curious if you have a sense of the historical picture of administration visits to classrooms. Just, it seems to me that there's a trend, an increasing trend under yours and Christine's leadership of visiting classrooms and kind of gathering this data, but I just don't know if you could share a little bit about our history in terms of administration visits to classrooms.
I guess I could from the perspective of being the high school principal, and I would say in all of those years, it was mostly just building administration doing those visits, and often it was either just to check in on staff every morning or to check in on students or to do eval, unfortunately, which is mandated by DESE. But I think that this succinct collaboration from district leadership to building leadership to then instructional leadership teams reviewing that data at each building has really shown teachers that we support the work that they're doing, that we want them to be successful in all of the professional development and all of the instructional strategy work that we've been doing. But we also know that we have to learn as well, and we have to be part of those conversations in order for change to happen. So I think that that's been the most positive, and I don't know if Stephen wants to add anything, but it's just, we just had an E-team with the SSOS DESE team this week, and even just the change in conversations with those teams from 7 years ago that I was part of were just more fulfilling because we are all in it to support the work so that our students are seeing success and growing and achieving. So I think we're all just of that mindset that that is what we need to do. So there is no excuse. You know, we hold places in our calendars because you can get distracted by so many other tasks, as you know, but we want to commit to being a presence and being involved in that work because it's the most important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just echo what the superintendent said. I think we've gotten some feedback from staff that talks about coming through, and like it sounds maybe corny in a way, like there's nowhere that we would probably rather be in the district than in a classroom. I think that's what we're most familiar with. We're educators. We take on a lot that doesn't feel like education. So when we go into the classroom, it feels like a sense of normalcy and home and a place where like the teacher and the students are the ones that are really in the work, but we feel like we can be some part of that, be it providing support or resources or giving feedback or just helping out a student who might be in need in that moment. And I think that's really the culture that we're trying to build. It's not like we're in classrooms for like to be watching teachers, and so we want to be there to support, to see what's happening, because that's the best way for us to know, is to see it firsthand.
Thank you. Superintendent, the other thing that has happened since the last month was the wonderful tour of the buildings that you gave us. Do you want to add?
Sure. On Friday, January 31st, I believe that we had a professional development day in district. So we had a schedule where city council and school committee members could meet and tour all 6 of our school buildings. I appreciate the city councilors that joined us on those tours, as well as vice chair and chair of the school committee. And I hope they got a lot of information and had a good time. I also did get feedback that it's hard on a Friday, so I'm certainly open to doing another round either in the summer or in the fall. I live in town, so wouldn't mind doing it on a weekend if that makes it easier for folks. I do want to say, though, we did do it in the time slot that we allotted, so we were able to get through the buildings during those half-hour stints in travel. So I think it was a good day overall, and happy to continue those in the future.
Thank you. All right. Let's see if I can find my agenda. Someone want to tell me what's next? I've lost. Yes. Okay, great. So question was raised essentially about how can members of the public contact us. And so there is on the, if you go to gpsk12.org and you select school committee, you can find from there a link. I think then it's another school committee submenu. It says current members. If you go to that, it lists the email address where you can reach all of us at once for a distribution list, and then our individual gpsk12.org emails. Individual members can also choose to have their phone numbers listed. Thank you, Mayor DeSorger, for volunteering your phone number. So those can get added to the page. If members want to have their phone numbers listed, you can email them to the superintendent. There's no pressure on that. It is understandable given certain concerns at times that people don't necessarily want their phone numbers on a website, but the opportunity for you is there if you'd like to have members of the public be able to call you directly. And then I have been somewhat inconsistent in terms of getting back to members of the public when they write to the full committee, but I will endeavor to be faster in my response time. Appreciate your patience. And so when I receive an email to that full school committee, when I respond, I will forward my response to the full committee so you all know what the communication has been. So any questions about school committee communications?
I know that it has been past practice to sort of wait for you to respond to members of the public, but is there any rule that says we cannot respond if we feel like we are able to respond sooner?
There isn't. I myself, before I was chair, would often respond to people. Before that, the thing that we ask, this is true of all of our communications, whether it's email or telephone or running into someone in the store. We do have policies about our communication. A lot of times folks do reach us a little bit out of order of a process that we have in our policies about school committee member authority and school committee staff communications. So those policies are there for you to review. Let's see, looking for there's a particular sentence in here that might be helpful for us to review. Shoot, I should have underlined it. But essentially, yeah, we just need to be aware when people are raising issues that are essentially personnel issues or complaints about administration, that there is a process for that, and it is not our role to do that. It's extremely important that we not both, so that folks have the best experience they can have of our procedures for how these issues are handled, and also for legal and liability concerns. We cannot really speak to items related to personnel in particular. So just, I appeal to you to please be extremely thoughtful about that. Superintendent, would you add anything to that?
No, in Glenn's responses, usually he will include me or forward to me after. So if that is the case, I would just appreciate to be looped in that way. Everyone's aware of what response was out there.
Thank you. Okay. Mary.
Chair,
Yeah.
thank you for bringing this up. Or I think it was Stacy that actually asked the question. I am only used to being a city councilor before being the mayor, and we always just answered the question and didn't CC anybody on them. I think it's important that everybody be very thoughtful about their responses. I always was as a city councilor, but I'm happy to hear that we can just answer those questions, because that was something that I heard getting on the school committee, and I'm happy to have you clarify that. I just started writing back a little bit to people, and I'm always thoughtful of the answer that I give, but it's good to know that there isn't a policy where we are not supposed to answer folks. And when I just want to ask this again, though, to make sure that I have this, because when I'm answering a person, I'm just answering them. I'm thinking about what I write, and I am very cognizant of the fact that the whole thing could be, FOIA requested, et cetera. So it's a thoughtful, responsible answer, but we don't have any obligation to CC anybody on that, do we?
There's a request that you do for the superintendent to be knowledgeable about the school committee communications to members of the public. That can be really helpful to her and her work, because oftentimes the issues that are coming to us will work their way through the process and land on her desk. So knowledge of our responses is useful to her. She has made that request. As far as I know, we don't have a policy on it. There isn't a rule we can follow. We are elected officials. People can write to us and we can respond. I think there have been times in the past when people have inferred that there were some types of limitations on our ability to respond to emails to the full committee. I am not aware of it in writing anywhere. So I think that the concern may have been that exactly the issues that I raised about liability, that if we're sloppy at all in our communications about personnel, it can cause greater, in our attempts to help. I really honestly believe everyone on this committee, in writing back to a member of the community, would be earnestly wanting to help them. And we just need to be aware that sometimes, because of the environment we're in, that can actually work at cross purposes to helping them, to making sure every student and family has a consistent experience with our policies and procedures. So that we are free to write to people, but we must be responsible.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you. So we need to be responsible and thoughtful in the responses, and I'm appreciating that. Thank you so much.
Sure. Any other questions or comments about this? Great. All right, I'm gonna just, we're past our time. Why don't, we're past 8 p, oh, I guess it's 8:30 PM, okay. Right, it's 2 hours into the meeting, we get the 5-minute break. Right, I'm just gonna take a second and find my agenda. I want my agenda. There we go. All right, so we're on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that any member would wish to have removed from the consent agenda? I will ask that we remove A and B, the minutes, from the consent agenda. All right, I would hear a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items A and B. A motion from Member Sexton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Member Childs. Any discussion? Secretary Denis, will you call the vote?
Sure. Secretary Denis, I'm a yes. Member Martini?
Yes.
Mayor DeSorger?
Yes.
Chair Johnson Assad?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Goodwin?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. We'll move on to approve minutes of the full committee meeting from January 6, 2025. May I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion from Member Goodwin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Member Sexton. I just noted that one of the votes on voting for me as chair seemed to be missing. I think Member Childs voted for me.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, great. So any other changes to the committee special meeting minutes from January 6, 2025? All right.
Chair.
Yeah.
Were they recorded?
This was the,
Both of those meetings, they're not up on GCTV. I was just asking. That wasn't actually what you were asking for a vote on, though. I realized that.
yeah. Let me circle back to you on that after the meeting, Mayor, if you don't mind. So, okay, so I guess it would be to a vote to pass the January 6 minutes as amended. Secretary Denis, would you call the vote?
Okay. Member Goodwin?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton?
Yes.
Chair Johnson Assad?
Yes.
Member Martini?
Yes.
Mayor DeSorger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so it's unanimous.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the minutes from February 12th. How am I doing in terms of the process with amending minutes? Is it okay to have a motion and a second and then talk about discussions and then pass as amended? Okay, so Susan Farber's nodding, so thank you. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from February 12th, 2025?
January.
Oh, January 8th, sorry. We will not pass the minutes from February 8th. It is. Hold on, let me find those. Yeah.
I'll make that motion to approve of the minutes from January 8th.
Thank you. A motion from Member Childs. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Member Sexton. The item was that we actually did Well, I guess there's kind of two items. One is we've referred in the minutes to first readings and second readings of policies, but our policy actually on reviewing policies has changed. It's kind of removed the first reading, second reading language. It talks about a three-stage process. First, where it's presented to us in our packets for reading. Second, where we have a discussion, which I guess would correlate with the first reading. And then at a following meeting where we vote on the final, they do the final vote on the policy, which would correlate with what we used to call the second reading. So I guess my suggestion for the minutes would be to remove the language of first and second readings, and also that we did, I made a note of where that was. Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. All right. So in the meeting minutes from January 8th, second reading is referred to on page 3. That's right. You wanted the numbers. Yep. V, C. Yep. And in the discussion below. And then also on item B2, which is on page 4, I guess that's 6, section 6, item B2. It refers to the first reading, and also BDE and BDF were passed over. So we will have our discussion time for those items tonight. Any objection to those changes? You could say policies presented for discussion, KHC flags and banners, AHBG, and then note BDE and BDF were passed over. Anything else you need, Susan? Okay. Thanks everyone for your patience, and thanks Susan for your forbearance. I could have done more to prep you for this, but I didn't. So I'll try to prep you more in the future. Great. So then any other changes to these minutes? Elizabeth, would you call the vote to accept them as amended?
Sure. Member Nguyen.
Yes.
Member Childs.
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton.
Yes.
Chair Johnson-Mossad.
Yes.
Member Martini.
Yes.
Mayor DeSorger.
No.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to discussion and vote on the Greenfield Public School competency determination. Assistant Superintendent.
So with the change in the law around MCAS, there was a bit of a shift in the goalposts that maybe not everybody foresaw. So we started the school year like any regular school year where the state was determining, the state assessment, MCAS, was determining a student's competence and so that they could graduate, right? So the state determined the competency, while local districts were able to identify whatever local graduation requirements were required in order to get a diploma. With the vote in November changing that, the MCAS is no longer a requirement as graduation. So we needed to develop a measure to determine whether a student was competent based on subject matter that was tested in the 2023 MCAS, which included ELA, math, and science. So we've worked with council to come up with this competency determination. And we are really trying to hold harmless any students who up until November were banking on the MCAS as the determining factor whether or not they might graduate in addition to local requirements. So, so that is what led us to this document. It does require a vote. It will be published so that all families and students are aware of that, but we need a measure for the competency determination, and it's no longer us being able to say the state, and it has to be different than your local requirements.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
I can't ask you yet.
why don't, well, let's see. Yeah, let's have a discussion first, then we can have the vote. Member Goodwin?
Has this state, in its infinite wisdom, given any guidance on whether local school committees or superintendents can recommend an either-or situation? So instead of in the past, you had to pass the MCAS in 10th grade, you got multiple tries, and we had to pay tutors if you didn't pass, and all the drama around that to get them to that point. But now the pressure is on local people to come up with that. We still have to give the test because there's a lot of people who think we're not giving the test anymore. Just so I am clear, we still, correct me if I'm wrong, we still have to give it. And there's a lot of money spent on that puppy. So can it be that a local district can make a, whatever your superintendent recommends for, this is how you're going to determine whether a child is going to graduate, or the MCAS test? I mean, are they just saying you can't use the MCAS test anymore, you still have to give it, all the kids can bomb it, because that's their plan. We're going to spend all this money on giving it, and it's really not going to give you the data you want, which is competency. Has there been any guidance, or it's just like we're not doing it anymore?
So before I answer your question, I'm not going to correct you. I'm going to stamp your point that we are still giving the MCAS, and MCAS will still be used as an accountability measure. So the presentation that I gave in October, and that I mentioned earlier tonight about meeting 53% of our targets, a lot of that, and when I talk about elementary school, almost all of that is dependent still on MCAS because it comes down to achievement and growth. So you are correct in that, that the MCAS will still be given. And while it is no longer a graduation requirement, it is still fairly high stakes, especially for a district, because those numbers will get used in your district and school report cards, in your accountability ratings. So the impact is still very real. So I appreciate you making that point, and I wanted to stamp it, not correct it. In terms of the competency determination, I have heard from some other districts who have considered MCAS, but most have gone away from that direction because of some of the confusion that you've mentioned. And like I said, this document we worked with council on to make sure that we were including everything in it that needed to be included.
Sorry, are you still being held to, if somebody doesn't pass it, that we have to provide all this remediation?
No.
Good, okay.
At that point, it still goes back to your competency determination. An email actually came out during this meeting to clarify some of those points, because I think those are questions that are coming up everywhere. And when the superintendent and I talked about it 100 times in the past couple of months, but again today, we said students walked into school in August with this as the goal, and then that got shifted regardless of where anybody stood on it in November. And then the past 2 months has been figuring out, okay, what does that mean now for districts in that competency determination, because that piece is required by law.
Other questions or comments? Member Sexton?
I am curious as to how did we arrive at D- being the like minimum passing? And if that were to be C, how many students would that affect, as in they wouldn't actually graduate because they don't meet that level, that competency?
It's a good question, and we explored that, and we arrived at D- in large part because of what I had said before, that the goalpost got shifted, and a number of students in the class of 2025 who are due to graduate months from now, who may have passed the MCAS, so they had everything they needed at that time, that maybe didn't pass a class with a C. They might have passed the class with a D-. So shifting that on them now would mean they no longer would have the competency determination. And while I won't give you a specific number, it's over 50%.
Is it just they don't turn in homework? Is there a mismatch between what's happening in the class and what's being tested? Because that seems bonkers to me. I don't need you to answer that right now, but that seems bonkers to me. But is this the kind of thing where we pass something now and we can revisit it in the future and decide that at some point we actually want to raise our own standard when we feel like we are able to get our kids to that point and they...
Yeah, I'm under no expectation or illusion that this will be our last conversation about competency determination.
Excellent. Great.
I think we struggled with some of the same things that you're struggling with.
Member Childs?
Well, so trying to find the sunnier view of it, so I'm hearing that our classes are more rigorous and harder to pass than the MCAS?
Yes.
Mayor DeSorga?
I just want to thank Stephen for answering all those questions, very hard questions in live time. As the answers were coming in, good for you having the courage to answer that while the information was coming in at you. Sounds like it's a little bit of a tough spot that we're in. Thanks.
Thank you.
What is our picture of what the state is doing? It seemed like in some ways the state may be moving to find other statewide standards or mechanisms for measuring this kind of thing.
It does appear that way. I know the governor is working to put together a committee or a work group to look at what could come next. I think the information around that is vague at this point, but we know that there is a formation of a committee that's happening right now.
Okay, so I guess stay tuned is a lot of what we're talking about here. Are we ready to, why don't we hear a motion to approve the, that's what you need from us, right? A motion to approve the draft, I guess, the Greenfield Public School Competency Determination Proposal as presented.
So moved.
A motion from Member Childs, is there a second? I'll second. That's Johnson Musad for a second. I think that's Ginny, Mayor, if I keep calling you by your first name, only because that's what is on the screen. Thank you for you. I see your hand went down. Okay, I'm assuming that was an old hand. You're an old hand at this. Any other discussion or questions? All right. Secretary Denis, will you call the vote?
Sure. Member Goodwin,
Yes.
Member Childs,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton,
Yes.
Chair Johnson Masad,
Yes.
Member Martini,
No.
Mayor DeSorger,
You're on mute, Mayor.
A yes, and thank you, Glenn.
and Secretary Denis, I'm a yes. So that passes with 1 nay.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation. We appreciate it. We can, yes. We will take a 5-minute break. It's 8:39. At 8:45, I will begin if there is a quorum in the room. Thank you. Welcome back. We're on to the Budget and Finance Subcommittee report with the discussion of school committee, city council budget collaboration, and discussion of fiscal year 2026 budget forecast. Member Martini? You're on mute, Member Martini, if you're there. All right, we were going to reorganize the order of the agenda, and I'll just continue on to the policy and program, and hopefully Member Martini can join us soon. So these are the policies I was talking about earlier that we didn't have a chance to discuss at the last meeting. Essentially, you can see that my greatest concern was in establishing the functions and duties for the subcommittees, which is a practice that we as a committee have taken on and trying to implement more. It was just listed in the passive tense. The school subcommittee will be provided with a list of its functions and duties, but there was no process described for how those would appear. So I've proposed essentially that the process be that the committee chair present a proposed description of the subcommittee's functions and duties for school committee approval. And the school committee either approve the description as presented, or if changes are needed, refer it to the policy and program subcommittee for further revision. In the case of an ad hoc committee, the proposed description would include a specific desired outcome or an end date, ensuring all parties understand when the ad hoc subcommittee will be disbanded. So that was the other issue that has come up in the past is, okay, we established an ad hoc committee, but how do we know when their work is done? I think if it's included in the description of their work, that would lead to greater clarity among members. So any discussion about BDE? Member Goodwin?
Sure. I mean, and I admit it, this is the first time I've read it, but I'm reading the language and I liked the way we handled it where we got the proposed duties and functions, and then the subcommittee read them and talked about them, and we ended up agreeing with them. But I'm just questioning why, if that it would go to the policy and program subcommittee. I guess I don't like one kind of trumping another. I mean,
I guess part of the challenge is that you may not have it might be better before a subcommittee starts to meet, that they know what their functions and duties are rather than creating a subcommittee without a charter essentially, and then asking them to give feedback on their charter. So, oh, it says we're muted. Oh no. Oh, that's, sorry, gang. The folks online haven't been able to hear us because I forgot to unmute the Zoom. So to catch you up, with many apologies, because I thought, I didn't hear from Member Martini because she couldn't hear me asking. We passed over the budget subcommittee report and we're on to the policy and program. We're discussing the process for subcommittees to receive their functions and duties. So anyway, that was my thinking. Certainly the committee can make a recommendation, to the policy subcommittee to talk about it as this policy, BDE, subcommittees of the school committee as a group, and come up with different solutions. It was just my proposal as a starting place. Member Goodwin?
I guess I just feel strongly that that one phrase, refer it to the policy and program subcommittee for further revision. I think if there's a lack of clarity or understanding about the mission of a subcommittee, the chair should straighten us out.
The chair of the subcommittee or the chair of the committee as a whole?
Both. If you've been made chair of a subcommittee, you should be working with the chair of the school committee to make sure that we're all aligned. I'm used to chain of command. I think adding another committee to it is like.
I see the mayor's hand.
Yeah, so I was sitting here, but I feel like I missed something. I'll put my hand down, but what did we miss?
So I can go over it again. So we're looking at BDE subcommittees of the school committee, and I wanted to address a problem in that item. The biggest problem with this policy that I saw is item 3. Just said the subcommittee will be provided with a list of its functions and duties, but there was no process described for how that list would be created or how the subcommittee would have it provided to them. So I've proposed a process where the committee chair would come up with a draft, the school committee could adopt it. If they had problems with it, they could refer it to policy and program for revision and then have it come back to the full committee. You could also, refer it to the policy. The committee could vote to refer it to the policy committee. And again, this is kind of like a play within a play. The committee could vote not to approve this as presented, but to refer it to the policy subcommittee with instructions. So you could say, please revise this and make it more top-down, make it so the committee chair just provides the list of functions and duties and there isn't any opportunity for feedback. Or you could say, that the committee as a whole will amend and adopt functions and duties documents. I personally don't like the idea of referring it to the subcommittee that's being created. I think that from the very first meeting, the subcommittee should know what their charter is. So that's my personal opinion, but I certainly am open to other motions from people.
Chair, can I continue for a second?
Sure.
Okay, so I don't even know if I watched that meeting in live time or if I watched it afterwards. I'm just talking about the finance committee now in particular. But and this is probably a procedural thing, but they had a budget in front of them without like all the information. I think it's kind of important that we sort of clarify that as a committee. Like we should have, I wasn't on that committee, thank God, but that we wouldn't be asked to vote on something if we didn't have all the particulars. And I think that's, well, we're setting up some rules.
Apologize for interrupting.
Oh, please, by all means, go right ahead.
Would you mind bringing that to the, when we get to the item about it sounds like you're talking about the budget and finance.
I'm sorry. Sorry if I was out of, I missed a little bit in this. I was on the meeting, but I missed a little bit. So
I know.
I'm sorry.
All right, yeah,
I'll say this, just tell me when I should speak on this, okay, Glenn? Chair?
Yes, I think during the budget and finance subcommittee report would be an appropriate time to share that feedback. Right now, we're considering item 10B, policy and program subcommittee. We're on policy BDE, subcommittees of the school committee. So any other, I guess, go ahead, Member Childs.
Super nitpicky. Second sentence after annual organizational meeting, that period should probably be a comma, and there's a space after it that is one too many that should be deleted. Sorry, copy edits.
Thank you. We appreciate copy edits very much. Also happy to receive them anytime, whether at the full committee meeting or in between or before. Member Deneve?
Did you make a motion so we had a motion to accept this with your revisions?
No, we haven't had a motion on this yet. It was just been set up in discussion.
Okay, so we're in the discussion phase?
Well, yeah, we haven't had we should have a motion, but I wanted to kind of give people some context before they made their motions, so maybe we could hear a motion. I will leave it open if members want to approve it as presented, or if you want to refer it to the policy subcommittee with certain instructions.
I just think in an ideal world, and maybe we are in an ideal world at the moment with how the committee is, it's not a problem to have the chair tell us our roles and duties as a subcommittee, in our subcommittee roles, if we're in a positive space. But if we have a committee where things don't rub along as easily as they are now, I feel that we might have problems with that. So I'd like to find a way to keep the door open for subcommittees to discuss their own roles and duties and bring that forward to the full committee and not be so constrained in case, I'm just sort of thinking of in the future, in case things are not as copacetic as they are in the moment.
I'm sorry, Member Childs?
I definitely see the value in that, especially because a subcommittee could be laid out with a specific goal, and in the process of doing work, they could discover something that had not been foreseen that would easily slide in. And so there should be some mechanism for flexibility in order to be able to pivot as needed.
One option would be for someone to make a motion to refer this to the policy subcommittee and to incorporate the thoughts shared tonight into a new proposal for the committee next month.
I'm happy to make
I'd
that
make that motion.
All right, I'm gonna say a motion for Member Childs and then a second for Member Deneve, because you're both on it.
Sounds great.
Sure, the motion is to refer policy BDE, subcommittees of the school committee, to the policy subcommittee for revision based on the discussion we've had tonight. Okay, and so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Member Sexton?
Just that if, as the policy and program subcommittee discusses and revises, a compromise that I see available is that instead of, because I'm hearing the resistance to referring it back to another, a totally different committee, but instead you could say refers it back to the chair of the full school committee as well as the chair of that subcommittee that is being proposed, and you all can work it out together.
Thank you for that feedback. We'll keep that in mind when we're working on it.
I
and you'll be there.
I did have a question about this other strike through though. And just, does that take away necessarily the right of a school committee member to do that? Or are we saying that that is no longer something that is allowed if that is struck through?
It's struck through because, I'm not sure exactly what is meant by participate as members of the public at the discretion of the chair, but certainly you cannot have any deliberation with more than 3 members of this of the subcommittee without it becoming a full school committee. Then you have a quorum of the committee. If you have a 3-member body and a 4th member participates, you violated open meeting law because it was really a full school committee meeting that was not posted appropriately. So for that reason, I think school committee members can attend subcommittee meetings and listen, but cannot participate in deliberations. And I think public comment would be probably advised against as well. Mayor?
So I think that's a very, very important topic for you to be bringing up, and that everybody should be thinking about that once or twice before they're voting on it. Thanks.
Sure. Any other discussion? Secretary Denis, will you call the vote on on the motion that we made about BDE?
Could you read that motion again, please?
Should I try to do it, or do you have it? Susan's moving to the microphone. Just one second.
Thank you.
The current motion is to refer policy BDE, subcommittees of the school committee, to the policy subcommittee for revision based on the discussion we've had tonight.
Any other discussion? Secretary Denis, will you call the vote?
Yes. Secretary Denis, I'm a yes. Member Martini?
Yes.
Mayor DeSorger?
No.
Chair Johnson Masad?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Goodwin?
No.
Passes with 2 nays.
Thank you. We will move on to BDF, advisory committees to the school committee. Let's see. So it's very similar. It's essentially saying rather than they will be instructed, it defines that it's the committee chair presents a proposal, and then the school committee can approve or refer to the policy program subcommittee. So I think based on the discussion we had on the last policy, I would like to hear a motion to refer policy BDF advisory committees to the school committee, to the policy subcommittee for revision based on our discussions of the early policy BDE.
So moved.
Motion from Member Childs. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. Who's on that committee again, Chair?
It is myself as chair. It's Secretary Denis and Vice Chair Sexton.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? Do you have what you need, Susan Farber? Secretary Denis, will you please call the vote?
Yes, Denis, I'm a yes. Member Martini?
Yes.
Mayor DeSorger?
No.
Chair Johnson Masad?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Goodwin?
No.
Okay, it passes with 2 nays.
Thank you. We'll move back to item 10A, Budget and Finance Subcommittee, discussion of school committee city council budget collaboration and discussion of fiscal year 2026 budget forecast. Member Martin?
Yes. The Budget and Finance Subcommittee met on February 3rd. First, we held an opening general discussion about budget-related collaboration between school committee and city council. I'd like to thank city council members Garrett and Taranzo for their time, respectful communication, and candid participation. We agreed we will revisit this topic further and to look forward to that. Next, we discussed the forecasted FY26 operating budget and received a preliminary summary from the superintendent. As you know, the subcommittee conducted outreach over the course of the fall, and stakeholder feedback from those listening sessions, as well as other constituent communications received by the committee last year, were used to establish the budget priorities that the school committee approved last month. The superintendent outlined for us how the school committee's approved budget priorities are incorporated into the forecasted budget, and Andy provided useful context information for us about outside factors, including the governor's recently proposed state budget, Chapter 70 aid, and how tuition increases for state-approved special education schools are set. We heard and discussed questions from members. I know I came prepared with a long list of questions, and we also welcomed questions from City Councilors Toronzo and Garrett. So I just want to thank everyone for working late into the evening in order to provide ample time for every question to be heard, answered, and discussed. And as part of that discussion, I was personally very gratified to hear the commitment in the room that I know I share with the superintendent and Member Goodwin to raising literacy achievement, including third grade reading proficiency. As you all know, the superintendent's proposed budget was published in the paper this Monday, and we will all have plenty of time to forward questions between now and the annual public budget hearing on the 24th. In short, this proposed budget represents an increase of 5.61% in all funds and 7.97% in the local appropriation, and includes 7 additional positions, the majority of which are needed in order to actualize the redistricting plan developed by the committee over the past 2 years, and that is going into effect in the fall. And one of these positions is also needed in order to provide beacon program services recently discontinued by the collaborative, which have helped 30 of our at-risk students to graduate with a high school diploma in recent years. So continuing this program is aligned with what the superintendent explained for us this evening about the importance of providing alternative pathways so that every one of our students can find success. In order to make clear the necessity of this increase, the subcommittee voted unanimously to request the superintendent advance this budget as forecasted, including a level staffing comparison to the full school committee. On February 24th, the superintendent will provide a fully detailed presentation at our annual public budget hearing. The school committee will then meet on March 3rd to approve our budget proposal for this year, which will then be forwarded to the mayor. And in the meantime, I would like to encourage all stakeholders to take some time to consider and share their feedback as we work to carry out our policy, which is that we develop an annual budget with community involvement that establishes levels of funding that will provide high quality education for all our students. And we very much look forward to seeing everyone on the 24th.
Thank you. Questions and comments? Member Goodwin?
So I guess I'm concerned. We had a vote and you described it accurately, because the wanting to see that number where nobody lost their job, where we weren't adding anything new, was important to know. And that number, I didn't see it in the newspaper and I don't see it online. I downloaded the proposed budget that appeared on the website to look at, to really know. And I appreciate the detail because it was the first time I really could figure out. Still don't know how many first grade teachers we have or how many third grade teachers we have, but I know how many teachers we have, which made me happy. But to try to really understand what we're paying for is important to me, and I think it's important to the taxpayers of Greenfield. Everybody is feeling the economy in different ways. 80% of the people who live in Greenfield are over 60, and a lot of them are on fixed incomes. We're standing in front of eggs in the grocery store wondering if we should go buy chickens. And so with our taxes as high as they are, we want to know what our taxes are paying for. And it's everything from, if the roads aren't cleaned right, we get mad because we just paid a tax bill and it snowed, and come on. And so right now, our schools are underperforming. We have declining enrollment. And we're looking at, this year we paid $2,000 more per student than the year before. We have less money coming in from the state because we have less students. So I think there's a lot of hard questions that are going to have to be asked, and without data, we don't have that. So that number is important because it's important for everybody in the school district to know this is the amount of money. If everybody stays and everybody gets their raise and everybody, You know, I don't know if it's 3%. I hung out with a lot of superintendents and in their head, they have 3%. But I think that's an important number to get out into the public.
Mayor DeSorger?
Hi. Yeah, that was that meeting that I watched, and I want to thank all that committee for serving on this. And I hope everybody will watch that meeting before we're voting on this the next time. So it was a good meeting, and you saw what information you had, and it was sort of why I voted questionably on the the roles that the subcommittees had. I think it's what other members could ask at those meetings is a kind of an important thing, but that was a great meeting, and I want to really thank that subcommittee for serving on this. And going forward, we really have to have all the information that we have in front of us to make good decisions. So thank you.
Member Martini?
Thank you. Just to answer the mayor's question from earlier, this meeting that Budget and Finance held is not our annual public budget hearing, which will be a fully detailed, lengthy presentation, which will take place on the 24th. And I just want to draw everyone's attention and encourage everyone to please put that date on their calendar and to come prepared with questions. And also, please, if you know that you have a question ahead of time, please forward it ahead of time, because sometimes it takes time to gather information in order to answer a question. So the more lead time you can give on that, the better, and the more high quality of information you'll be able to get. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I also had the opportunity to watch the meeting. I haven't watched all of it yet, but getting there. And I guess, first of all, Member Martini, I wanted to really thank you for your leadership on the budget subcommittee. You're really upping our game in terms of our process, our community engagement. We have been able to respond to President Wondolowski's request that there be more engagement with the City Council earlier in the process. And that's thanks to you, Member Martini, for really making that happen, I think. I guess I would, I think that as Member Goodwin rightly points out, people are pretty tense about finance these days. It is a very tough time economically for everybody, or for most people in Greenfield. And I think sometimes around issues of finances, we can sometimes lose track of our kind of commitment to, I think, civility and respect with each other. And there were times when, in the discussion, when I felt that members were using language that I think was less than 100% respectful. There were kind of insinuations that someone was hiding something. There were times when people said, I've been told never to ask questions. It didn't really strike me as accurate or really fully respectful. I don't think, just my personal perspective is, I don't believe that anyone's trying to pull a fast one. I don't think anyone is hiding budget information from us. I think our business manager and our superintendent have been extremely open to questions from members. I know I've referred members to them for questions many, many times. So So I just would ask that we as a committee strive for respectful conversations, even when we have disagreements both about the contents and also about the process. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much, Member Martini. Move on to the Community Engagement Subcommittee.
Hello, that
Hi.
would be me.
Great.
All right. This is the report of the Community Engagement Subcommittee. We met in January at the GHS Library. We discussed our December goals and distilled one of our plans to increase attendance at school events and functions. Vice Chair Sexton has made a sign-up sheet, which you will find in your materials. It's a link that you click on and is not something that's printed out because it is going to be added to regularly. We're bringing this sheet to the full committee asking for its adoption. And although we are not required to attend events as school committee members, this is one way we've identified to increase our involvement in the GPS community and to show that we are available and listening. We intend for the sheet to be updated by the subcommittee regularly. We will be meeting again on Tuesday, February 18th, and it will be fully remote. I'm wondering, Glenn, would you like a motion to adopt this document as something we can use as a full committee?
Yes, we'd love a motion to adopt the school event sign-up sheet as presented.
So moved.
A motion from the mayor and a second from Secretary Deneve. Thank you. Any other discussion? Member Childs?
I have a quick question. Is this document going to be publicly accessible, or is it just an internal organizational piece?
It absolutely could be publicly available, but it doesn't have to be. It's mostly just that, a housekeeping document for the committee to log on when you can and take a look at the events that are upcoming in the district and see if there are any that you are able to attend. We were thinking that making it sort of open to everyone, you'd be able to see who's signing up for what and plan, so that we don't have an unintended quorum or anything like that, and get an idea of what's upcoming so that you can, really get your schedule in order and not feel too overcommitted. That was one thing that we really wanted to make sure was that nobody felt like they were being asked to do more than they could handle. So that's really the function of the document. And right now, if you look at the document, there's no events upcoming. I believe Vice Chair Sexton said that there weren't any that they could find, but perhaps that has changed. I'll let them speak on that.
Yes, yeah.
But you will see events from January, and it will just be constantly updated. So check in, to see if you can add, your presence to any of them in the future.
Thank you. And we did get a note from Member Sexton that there have been some items added there. I did see some, so thank you for your work on that. Mayor?
Just another thank you. I think that committee is doing a fabulous job making sure that, there is more public involvement. Thank you for putting that list together, and I'll be putting my name down where I can. And thank you so much, all the members.
You are very welcome. The last little bit of it is that on Tuesday, February 18th at our next meeting, if any member of the public would like to join us remotely and chime in, the main function of it is to get feedback from the public. That would be great. You are very welcome. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And we'll be discussing how we can get the information about our subcommittee out into the public so that people know that we are working on the issues that they're bringing to us. So thank you very much.
one item we need to be aware of in subcommittee work these days is that if we have a public comment component of our agenda, there needs to be an in-person place where people can come and make comment per a recent ordinance that was passed by the city council. So that changed very quickly on us. It's not like they came and provided a training or sought our feedback or anything, but that is something that we have to start to incorporate immediately. So,
Okay, can I ask a question, Glenn?
yeah.
Because normally we would meet at the library so that we would have that in-person component. But for example, we're meeting the third Tuesday of every month. And the third Tuesday at GHS means the library was to be closed for winter break. So we didn't have the option for an in-person component. So if that happens, do we not accept public comment at that time, or do we have to find another venue?
Unfortunately, the way the ordinance is written, from my understanding, it almost discourages a public comment in those cases, because if you do meet only on Zoom, you cannot have a public comment section. Like if there's going to be public comment on an agenda, there has to be the ability of members to attend someplace in person. So we could work with you on trying to find another solution, but that's the current state of affairs.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us all know about that.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, did everyone receive sometimes I think that everyone is seeing something, maybe it just came to me as chair. I'll forward that to you. I apologize, I kind of thought they had sent it to all of us, but make sure you get that. And sorry for the surprise. So any other comments or questions about the motion? All right, Secretary Geneve, will you call the vote?
Sure. Geneve, I'm a yes. Member Martini?
Yes.
Mayor DeSorger?
Yes.
Chair Johnson-Masad?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Goodwin?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful, thank you. We're on I don't have anything for old business. For new business, I think we could hear from people if they have recommended agenda items for future meetings. Hearing none, I would hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion from the mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from member Childs. Any discussion? Secretary, will you call the vote?
Yes. Secretary Geneve, yes. Member Martini?
Yes.
Mayor DeSorger?
Yes.
Chair Johnson-Masad?
Yes.
Vice Chair Sexton?
Yes.
Member Childs?
Yes.
Member Goodwin?
That was a yes.
Okay, we are unanimously adjourned at 9:23 p.m.